Nice, well done. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another podcast of The Better Person. I hope all of you have been doing amazing. Chrissy, my man, how you been?
Very good, bro. It's been an interesting week, and yeah, but really good.
What you get up to?
I anything new this week? Well, we traded the markets as we usually do. We saw the
Is that
market.
recording, bro? Sorry.
Yeah, bro.
Hectic.
Yeah. Look at it. It's going hard. All red, baby.
So you've been trading markets?
Trading markets. Watch the market fall over. So we're really excited because we're about to pick up lots of bargains in the marketplace. So
You were not supposed to talk, bro, at this time.
It's all right. It's all right.
It was a surprise for the audience.
No. That's my conscience talking.
All right, guys. So we have a surprise for you. We've got a guest of. He's a chartered accountant, one of the top tax advisor,
Yep.
right? He's one of those people. There's only 11,000 in Australia, right? And we're so lucky to have you here. How do you feel to
Pleasure.
be a part of a podcast that's going to be the best podcast in Australia?
I feel absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
It's
you're the
always great
first-
to be involved in things like this, where everyone can benefit from other person's experience and opinions.
Yeah,
100%.
definitely.
So
I'm just gonna rearrange it just very slightly, bro.
Sure.
Just very slightly, like that. Perfect.
So you're our first guest, right?
Awesome.
And we like. How do you
Thanks for
feel
having me.
about having a guest over in our podcast? bro?
It's look. I'll be honest with you, bro. This is something new. Do you know what I mean? It's something
Yeah.
really new for us. So be interesting to just have this conversation. See how Mina here is gonna help our viewers become better people. Podcast.
Exactly right. So talk to me about your journey, right?
About my journey.
Talk to me about.
Okay. So really, my journey is I started off with accounting internally in a company,
Mhm.
right? And I was doing that for about 6 years.
Yep.
And then right about coming to the 5th, 6th year, I got involved in a soccer club. Okay. And I was one of the main people who helped found it. I worked with some incredible youth and beautiful people who had their own skills and their own experiences, and we sort of came together. So, okay, what are the values? What do I want to achieve from this club? Wrote all that down, and mate, before you know it, everyone was just extremely excited, extremely energetic. Everyone just went in there and just tackled it head on, right? And so the club grew from year to year, and they ended up winning a few championships, which is absolutely fantastic. So from that point on, I said, you know what? This advisory stuff is very, very powerful. You can help so many people out with it. So I left working as an internal accountant and then moved into advisory, working in public practice, business services accounting, taxes, business advisory, right?
So just
And
for
so
our
I'm doing
viewers
that.
that don't understand the difference between those two things, can you just sort of just identify what is actually different about that sort of tax advisory?
Because clearly
Yeah.
I messed up in the starting. I don't know what's different. So what's the difference?
Yeah. So really, being an internal accountant is mainly looking at numbers, doing number crunching. It can be a bit overly repetitive, right? So you're doing bank reconciliations, you're doing that kind of stuff. And so you can sort of get bogged down with that level of detail instead of being able to look at the big picture, more strategic vision, right? When you get into things like taxation, you are starting to understand tax law and how it applies to the individual's lives and the how it applies to organizations, such as self-managed funds, right? Businesses, companies, trusts, those types of things, partnerships, okay? So you're able to better advise people how to structure and how to grow their business.
Yeah, right. Okay,
Okay.
gotcha.
And you also start learning more about marketing,
Yeah,
right?
okay.
More about finance, how to scale a business. What do businesses need to start growing?
Yeah.
Okay. So it's really beneficial. Like I said, it's big picture, right? So you're actually going from big picture and going into the detail, because also prepare financial statements, right? We prepare, again, bank reconciliation. We do all that kind of stuff. But having that big picture in mind allows you to be more strategic about things.
Understood.
Okay.
Yeah.
So for a small business or a medium-sized business, how do you offer them, like how do you help them out, right? So someone having you on board, how does that benefit them in their company?
Okay. So having me on board, okay, what would it do? What can I advise someone on? Well, the first thing I could say, what structure are you looking to operate the business out of? All right. And then once we look at the right structure, so for example, someone who might just be starting out, they might operate as a sole trader. They might be working full time, okay, and it's not appropriate for them to go to a company, right? But in other industries, right, they might need to use a company structure for asset protection and for protection from creditors. Okay. Those areas might be things like engineering, where there's a higher risk, right? Things like manufacturing, there's a higher risk. Okay. So those types of areas, and then from there we look at the product that you're selling. What's the margin? Okay, what's the current market offering? What's your USP, which means unique selling proposition, right? What's your edge? What edge do you have compared to the rest of the market? And one thing we actually really focus on, I personally focus on, is goes back to Simon Sinek. What is your why? Why are you doing this? Okay. Is it money driven? Right? Is it family driven? Is it community driven? Do you want to make an impact on it? Do you want to leave a legacy? You know, those types of very important questions, because they tend to drive everything else. Does that sort of answer your question?
So just to sort of reiterate, so I'm understanding this correctly. Tax advisory is not just the day-to-day execution of tasks that required like by the tax department, but also looking at the bigger picture of, okay, what is the objective, let's say in 5 years for the business, and how do we structure the finances so that we're in the best possible position to achieve that goal over that period of time?
Correct. So I'm a chartered tax advisor and certified practicing accountant. Okay. And I'm a tax agent too.
Right. Okay.
So when you're in business services, you bring all that stuff together. All right. You're not just focusing on one area, which is just tax law. Right. You also look at, how do I drive the business profit up? Okay. And it's about having candid conversations. And trying to think outside the square.
Awesome. So just to unpack that a little bit while we're here, what do you see as being the most common mistakes that people make in this space?
The most common mistakes. Okay. I think the most common mistakes is not understanding their why, why they're getting into business, right? Some people get into business to escape.
And why is that important to understand?
Why? Because it becomes your driving force, right? There'll be tough times when you get into business. Having a why will help you take it one step at a time and keep moving forward, right? The other thing is prioritizing. A lot of business people, they get bogged down with, I need to do this. Oh my goodness, how am I going to juggle all that, right? Prioritize, get a list together and say, this is going to move the needle. This is going to boost my business. This is going to bring in the income. And focus on that. Everything else, either try to delegate or such as, look at people who do marketing, look at people who do admin, who are really good at that stuff, and they'll save you a whole lot of time and they'll get it done properly. Right? Those types of things.
So just on that, from what it sounds like, it almost goes down into Prince.
Sorry, guys. It's on mute. I don't know why it's doing that.
So it sounds like you also go into management consultancy to a certain degree.
To a certain degree, yes.
Yeah. So where does that line where do you draw that line in terms of the stop between advisory to management consultancy?
Yeah. Okay. So again, they're sort of intermingled with each other, but we try to look at the big picture, right? In terms of what do you want to achieve? All right. There are other people who do more management consulting services, and they'll get into the nitty gritty of things like your drivers, right? But what I personally try to focus on is the big picture, and then start going into a little bit of detail. But again, there's people who specifically look at that type of thing.
So you have a bird's eye view, look at the business objectives, what are they trying to achieve,
Correct.
and you advise them based on how do you get to that stage.
Correct.
Right.
Another thing I like to approach to is your lead and your lag indicators, right? And there's a group of management accountants, they're called Kaplan and Norton, and a long time ago they developed something called the balanced scorecard approach, right? And what the balanced scorecard approach looks at is, again, what are you doing right now, okay? And what is your end result? So if you look at financial statements, they're a lag indicator. But a lead indicator is, for example, how much marketing do you get involved in, right? Are you learning a lot? Are you going out there and teaching yourself.
And what's that
Okay.
called again? Sorry,
Which one?
the name of the
Kaplan and Norton.
Yep.
Yep, they developed something called the Balanced
Balance
Scorecard Approach.
Scorecard approach. All right, I'll definitely
Correct.
have to look that up.
So you see, so basically what you see is okay, right now I'm over here. This is what I want to achieve. How do I get to that?
Correct.
That's basically what it is,
Correct.
right?
And then developing metrics that measure what I'm doing and what's happened.
Right.
If you look too much at we've come to the end of the year, let's look at what we've done, right? Then it's too late. It's too late to influence all that stuff. But if you say to yourself, okay, how many meetings have I attended? How many networking events have I been to? Right? Have I been active on, say, social media? Right? That type of thing. Okay. Have I developed friendships? Okay.
Network with people.
Correct.
And
correct.
what
with
you're
KRIS and Fahad, for example.
and what you're saying is literally, so with me, like, because if I open up my laptop right over there and I open up my notes file and I'll show you my goals for my business, this is exactly like what I'm doing, right? And I see how it impacts your business. Number one thing that you said is about, it's called the 80 to 20% rule, where the 20% of the
Pareto
business,
principle.
yeah, that's what it's called, right? So
Pareto.
so the 20% of a business, whatever stuff that you do that moves the needle, that drives the revenue to your business, you focus solely on that, and then the rest 80%. You delegate it to your team, your task. For example, me over here sitting right now, I'm building brand awareness for my company, right? All of this editing that's going to happen is delegated, right? So it's been in practice, and it's so important to get that stuff sorted, right? So in conclusion, what I did when I started my business up was, when I learned about this principle, was I had a 20 on this side, I had a line drawn between the paper, 80 on this side. Those 20% of tasks in my business that drive in revenue, right, that makes friendships, makes all that kind of stuff, I focus completely on that, right? For my business was sales, right? Getting my name out there, getting people to know me, and just closing deals, sitting in meetings and whatnot, right?
And I think that is absolutely fantastic.
Right.
Even more brilliant is the fact that you've drawn it up, you've put a line down the middle, and you've said, this is the 20, this is the 80%. That's absolutely brilliant.
100%. And that 80% of tasks in my meeting with the team, this is what you guys have to focus on. All I'm doing, just looking over, okay, fine, good, but I want to focus on that stuff. Now what I'm starting to do is that 20% of tasks, right? Now I want to create leaders within my business to do that 20% of tasks as well.
And that's something that I think is very, very important. And a lot of business people, right, especially in the SME, small to medium enterprise range, especially those, who are just developing their business, they don't focus on leadership, all right? And I think leadership is very, very important to scale. And when we say leadership, we don't talk about giving your people menial tasks and saying, oh, you do this and I'm going to just focus on the bigger picture. It's right for the business person to focus on the bigger picture, but you need to actually develop these people, because if you don't develop these people, they will become very bored one day and they will leave you, right? And don't think, if I don't develop them, they're not going to go to the competition. Whatever. Well, we've got the internet these days. People can learn a whole lot just by themselves, by just taking initiative, right? So they'll do that, and they'll go to someone who treats them even better than you do, right? And they will help that person go and scale their business. And then one day, these people might have their own business. Okay? So it's very important to, as a leader, to really develop everyone.
I completely agree with that. I mean, it's I spent 15 years in the recruitment industry, and a lot of that time was advising companies on strategy like this, retention strategy specifically. And one of the things that, and the rhetoric that you've just mentioned of, well, they'll just go to my competition, what's the point? Kind of mindset is so detrimental to the business as a whole every single time.
It really is.
Because it's like, well, if that, it's so stupid. It's like, well, I'm not going to look after my girlfriend because she's going to break up with me anyway. That's ridiculous. It's freaking ridiculous, yeah?
And KRIS is someone that's lived through that.
That's right.
Right? He's lived through that experience where, he's not taken care of, in the last podcast. And it's funny how in this podcast we're talking about this, because our last podcast is going to get published hopefully by Monday. We talked about that. I heard this video that people were saying, the top business leaders, right? They were saying that's quite lonely up there, right? When you get to the top, when you have business industries and whatnot, build.
Yes.
And the reason being for that is because at this stage of their business, when they're done, they don't help people grow together with them, and it just completely maps out each one of us saying they're so important to build leaders and whatnot, right?
I think it also goes back to what Mina was talking about is the why. Oftentimes if something is solely financially driven, then you simply look at the bottom line, right?
Correct.
And anything that adds to the bottom line, regardless of where scale could take you, right? But whatever adds to the bottom line in the micro, that's what businesses oftentimes focus on, which is really detrimental to the macro picture, right?
And I like that you mentioned the micro and the macro, right? So approaching it from a bottom line, how do I improve the bottom line, is thinking of, how do I grow this business as soon as possible, right? Well, just like everything, business take time to grow. And if you really, really want to grow a strong business, you need to build the right foundation. You don't build a house on sand. You build a concrete foundation, right? You get the advice of engineers and make sure that thing is solid. So whatever castle or whatever you want to build on top of it will stand the test of time.
Yeah.
It's the exact same with businesses.
Yeah.
You really got to develop that leadership, and you got to love people.
Yeah.
Right? You got to want what's best for them and what's best for you too.
Yeah, 100%. I don't think
In
you
a
can be
sustainable
selfish.
manner. Yeah.
Exactly, and I think that's a really key word. So, no, definitely agree with all of that. Let's flick on to our next question. So, Mina, we're going to go through a set of questions with every person that comes on this podcast.
Okay.
And so, and obviously they're in the theme of the Better Person podcast, right? So, tell me about, I know this sounds like a freaking job interview now, right? But, I'm really curious to know about a time, like a single point in your life where that was pivotal, that everything changed, or
That's
something
deep, bro.
really, really profound happened.
That's deep. You gotta talk like right in the mic now, because now we're getting deep.
Okay.
Right?
Alright.
So you gotta be like, put your deep voice on.
It was the time that
I'll put a nice echo on it, don't worry.
again I got engaged in that soccer club.
Yeah.
You could
And
not engage into that soccer club.
I was engaged in the soccer club
Okay.
and developing that.
Mm.
And I was actually serving at a local parish too at the same time, right? So it's bringing those two together and
That's-
seeing
sorry.
the impact on
That's
people.
positive, right? That's positive.
Yeah.
What we want to know about that deep point in your life where you're down on the floor. We've all been through that, right? We're
Yeah.
down on the floor. We're
Yeah.
like, you know what, Mina? I want to get back up.
Yeah.
And I want to solve this problem, or I want to make something better out of myself. You're the person that I can tell that someone, you like to read, you like to, constantly improve yourself and all that kind of stuff. You like to build businesses, help people out.
Yeah.
All of that motivation doesn't come from just being like that. It comes from some deep, dark secrets behind you. So what is that? Right? So what is that point in life where you're just like, I've got to get back up, man?
It doesn't necessarily have to be the worst thing in the world, you know, but
The
If
point,
you're comfortable.
The point in life is when I was working in the business. Sorry, as an internal accountant. Okay, it's to further empower other people. It also distinguishes me in the market, and ultimately, it's about just helping people to grow and to scale and to really look after their family, their friends, their community. So that's what it's really about.
yeah, cool. So would you say that's your why?
That's my why.
Yeah,
Yeah,
cool.
that's my biggest why.
What's
It's
your
very
why, bro?
important.
Well, my way is about freedom, but not just freedom for myself, freedom for my family. That's the biggest thing. I have 2 nieces and a nephew that and I love very, very
Beautiful.
much. And
Awesome.
for me, I'm not someone, I've always been focused on my career and all that sort of stuff. So for me, it was more about ensuring that the next generation has a foundation to stand on, very much in the way that my parents built a foundation for me to stand on. And it's just about making sure that the next generation has that platform, and then so on and so forth, and making sure that they have those values, So when it comes to me, it's about freedom for everyone.
Perfect.
That's awesome,
Yeah.
man.
I agree. Freedom is a very big thing. I think
Yeah.
if you don't empower yourself, you can't empower other people.
Empower
too.
100%. And I also think that as humans, we only get one chance at life, and so we should do our very best to do things that make us happy, and so that when we reach our deathbed, we can say that, you know what, I'm fucking proud of myself.
We did what we had to do, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was this thing I was listening to. It was going like, it said that every man has 2 lives, right?
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Okay, so the way you
First
look at
time
it.
listening to it.
Okay, so every man has 2 lives,
Okay.
right? The other one starts when you realize he only has one,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
And
Nice,
that just
okay.
hit me. I was like, yo,
Yeah, yeah,
yo, that's deep.
Interestingly, right? So I'm a big fan of Formula One, right? And last year we saw one of the biggest crashes in recent history in Formula One. It was at Abu Dhabi in Sakir, and Romain Grosjean was the driver, and he drove his car and he hit a wall at 140 miles an hour, and the car split in half.
Fuck.
Yeah, car split in half, and the half that was like the front half that he was in was stuck inside the crash barrier, and it caught fire.
Wait, so half of his body is on one side and
No,
half...
no. So
oh,
his whole body is inside the crash barrier,
uh-huh.
inside the part of the car that's on fire, right?
Yep.
He is literally on fire. If you saw this accident, you'd be like, "There's no way anyone has survived this,"
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
By I don't know what miracle, right? He's climbed out of this car about a minute and a half after he's crashed it. So he's been on fire
By himself.
Yeah, he's been on fire for a minute and a half. Yeah, he's climbed out while still on fire, right? And he's been pulled out by this doctor, and then someone else has just thrown it, like, you know, this
Yes,
fire,
yeah,
like a fire extinguisher on him, and they take him to hospital, right? Anyway, that's when he quit Formula One. He just couldn't do it anymore. But I watched the interviews after that, and you could see that he was a changed human being.
Mm.
It was like, oh shit, I've only got one
Yeah,
life, you
yeah.
know, and he could have been gone. I was this close to death, and I think that there's something really profound in being that close to death, in that, you know, it really puts into perspective a lot of things in life, you know.
It's like what you're saying just makes so much sense to me on exactly why I do boxing,
Mm.
right? Because of course, when you go in that ring, it's not like but you face death, you face all your fears,
Mm.
yeah, and that's so powerful. That motivates me so much, is knowing the fact that I can just walk in the ring and something can happen, God forbid, right? And I don't know, it just drives me in the fact that, you know, like, this is it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Just on you doing boxing,
Mhm.
what self-talk do you have when you're in the ring?
So before the fight or after the fight? Before the fight, it's more interesting.
Okay.
Way more
Tell
interesting.
me, give me a
Alright.
bit of a glimpse.
So
onto
last
both
night I was
sides.
talking to one of my boys. He has his fight in about 10 days.
Yep.
And I told him, I'm like, every single fight that I walked into thinking I was gonna lose, I lost that fight. I've only lost once. Okay.
Mhm.
Every single fight that I walked in knowing that I'm gonna win that fight, I want that fight. Right. So my thoughts before a fight. Okay, so I'm in the room. We warm up with my coach and whatnot, and that's the time where I'm like, okay, everyone just leave the room. I want the room to myself. Now, if you're in amateurs, there's gonna be people around you, but I just like that peace, right? I use something to calm me down. I listen to Quran. I listen to some soothing noises and whatnot, and I just clear my mind out, and I put in subconscious of my mind, I'm gonna win. I'm gonna walk out of that fight. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. I
Yeah.
repeat that stuff.
Yeah.
And I've done that after my first loss, my first fight I had, and since then I've just doing that. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna win. I'm
Yeah.
gonna win. I'm
Yeah.
gonna win. I'm gonna
Yeah.
win. Train harder than the person other than thing. I'm
Mm.
gonna win. Right? It's all mindset.
Do you think it's your belief? It's just simply your belief that takes you there. Like, do you
100%.
think you visualize the outcome by
Manifest
just
it, bro.
yeah, just
Manifest
pure,
that
yeah.
shit. Yeah, like, bro, it's just crazy. Like, that's exactly what I'm saying. Every fight that I went into saying, bro, I'm going to lose, I lost that fight. It is a sparring match I'm not confident about. It is something like that. It is one partner work. Before entering the training, if I feel like, nah, I'm not feeling it, I don't feel it that day.
Yeah.
The days I'm like, you know what? I'm the prince, bro. You know, I got this. I'm going to win. I'm going to walk out of the fight as a winner.
Mm.
And I think you got to have that self-talk. Like, it sounds like it's arrogant to some degree, right?
Yeah.
But you've just got to go in there and you've got to have that self-talk. Like, I remember when I was playing for the soccer club, I used to be a defender, okay? And I used to have this mentality, this self-talk. I'm stepping in there. No one is going to get past me.
Come closer to the mic and please say it.
No one,
No.
no one
Mm.
as a defender,
Mm.
soccer defender, is going to get past me. And if they do, I'm going to frustrate the living heck out of them.
Yeah.
Okay, so even if they do get past, they won't be able to take that shot,
Yeah.
right? And that's what I used to do.
Yeah.
I remember one of the boys. They used to call me Mina be the bulldozer. It's like, oh, all right, that's back then it's like, okay, that's maybe not a very nice thing to say, but you know what? Why not? If I'm gonna be a bulldozer,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna help out my team
Mm.
reach their objectives.
Mm.
So what? I'm a bulldozer then
That's
at that particular point in time.
Yep.
So you got to have that mentality.
Yeah,
Okay. You just got
agreed.
to go. Okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And it's not arrogant.
Yeah.
It's not. You're
Yeah.
talking to yourself. Arrogance comes when you go like, okay, I'm the prince, you're dad, and this.
Yeah.
I just have, if me and you have self-confidence in each other,
Yes.
like in ourselves, then
Yeah.
what's it to other person?
It goes back to that why I think.
Mm.
Okay. Why am I doing this?
Mm.
For my family. Maybe
Mm.
that's an example for other people. Okay. When you approach it in that way, then it doesn't become arrogant. It become value driven.
Mm.
Okay. And you're pushed
Mm.
to achieve that thing.
That's
You know what I'm saying? Like
excellent.
say,
That's
what
really
I'm saying.
excellent.
I'm gonna frustrate this person.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this because I like frustrating people. At the end of the day, it's the team objective. The team
Yeah.
objective is to win,
Yeah.
right? So because of that, I'm like, no one's gonna get past me,
Yeah, yeah, I love
and I'm
that.
gonna frustrate the living heck out of whoever
Yeah.
that does. I'm just gonna be right behind them.
Yeah.
Okay, that they just won't be able to take a clear shot.
Yeah.
Because in that moment, you're playing with your emotions.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think that it's
Very
really,
emotional. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like what Mina just said is really, really, really important to just go over again. And that was the fact that when you go into these situations and you have to bring on a certain level of intensity, right? Whether it be aggression or otherwise, yeah? It's not because you enjoy being aggressive,
Yeah.
but it's because the value driven nature of what you're doing means that for the team objective to be filled, you need to fill in those shoes, right?
100%,
And I
yeah.
think that that's such an important distinction
Yeah.
to make in your mind is that I'm not doing this because I'm an angry person. I'm doing this because of my why.
Yeah.
You know,
'Cause-
and
Because you're a passionate person.
yes,
It's
yeah,
your passion rather than aggressiveness. Because at the end of the day, it's all energy, and you challenge that.
yeah,
You channel that energy, right?
yeah, yeah.
And if you're passionate about something, you just go into it with your heart.
Yeah.
Again, it's value based. You just go in,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Being aggressive, you can go in there too, but the objective is not right.
yeah,
The objective
And
is not
that's
being aggressive.
Correct.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
and this is what brings me back to the other conversation that we were talking about the other day. It's
Mhm.
like having any goal or anything like that,
Mm.
it's always gonna suppress.
Mm.
Yeah, what I mean by that is like, for example, I want to get that car. I want to achieve that car. What's next? What's next? What's
Mm.
next? Right? When I get the house, I'm gonna get the house in 5, 10 years. I'll get that. Then what's next? Right?
Yeah.
So the moment you have a goal bigger than you,
Mm.
right, bigger than yourself, that's when you are like just so motivated,
Mm.
right? That why brings back the same thing. Have that why bigger than yourself as
Mm.
well, right? It's not because I want to be aggressive. That's not my why.
Mhm.
I want to win because I want my team to win with me. I
Correct.
want the name up there.
Correct.
Stuff like
And it'll
that.
help you sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
Again, go back to what you mentioned, Chris. It's looking at the macro level.
yeah,
Right? You look at both. You look at the micro and the macro because you
Mhm.
need to have, synergies, and you need to make sure that they mesh together.
Mhm.
Okay. But again, having that that macro objective
Mm.
will help you sacrifice short-term things
yeah,
for the bigger gain.
Yeah.
And that's something that Gary Vaynerchuk talks a lot about. Actually, he talks about him giving people, and he'd rather make billions and billions of dollars down the track rather than just making it now,
Mm.
because he looks at the big picture.
yeah, yeah. And I completely agree with that. You know, and I think that a lot more people need to be patient.
Yep.
You know.
And so when I mention making the billions of dollars in the future rather than making it now, because he's talking about the sustainable manner in
Yeah.
which it's made.
Yeah,
Right? Because
yeah.
obviously you can make $1 billion now.
Mm.
Why not?
Yeah.
Right? If there's nothing that's bad about it,
Yeah,
why not?
yeah. But yeah, if it doesn't fit in with your moral compass, then
Correct.
then what's the point, right? So no, that's really interesting.
So I reckon if you want to conclude the podcast, we'll talk about.
Well, I want to ask one more question.
You wanna ask
One more question.
Go for it.
So maybe this is how we conclude the podcast, right? So, so one more question, Mina. So this is pertaining to like giving advice to our viewers. But if you could go back and give yourself advice 10 years ago from what you know now, what would it be?
Come close to the mic, bro.
I reckon.
Come close to the mic, bro. It's
Yeah.
gotta be.
No,
deep.
we'll catch it. It's fine.
I think look at your empowering yourself. Sorry,
Mm.
as soon as possible, because the moment that you do that, you're going to start empowering other people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, and have your why very clear,
Mm.
and make sacrifices.
Yeah.
Right. Don't be jealous of other people around you. You don't know what their story is.
Mm.
Ultimately, you will fall into various issues.
Mhm.
That's life, right?
Mm.
But I do believe that looking back in the long run, things will fall into place.
Yeah.
And you'll understand why you had to walk the path that you had to walk.
Understood.
Okay. So long as you're not, going out there intentionally making silly mistakes and you're getting advice, then that's perfectly fine. You know what I mean? But if you're making mistakes because you're doing silly stuff, then you can't really blame life on it. You can't blame other people.
Understood.
Right? Ultimately, things will work out, and you will look back and say, okay, I had to take that job. I had to make friends with this particular person, although say we broke up or whatever, right? For this particular reason.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And you know what's that called? What's the wording for that? It's providence.
Providence.
Right? That's the wording. Providence, the word itself means that, like, you know how I said things fall into the place and all that kind of stuff, and I'd have to do this job for me to get to this level.
Yeah.
That's all providence, because it's whoever you believe in, the universe, God, and whatnot.
Yeah.
He's making things right for you, right? To the point where even before you're born, 30 years down the track, if you're gonna eat a piece of rice, your name's written on that rice, right? It is, and it's so beautiful and so, just who you're gonna marry, what your job's gonna be. It's all written. Do you guys believe in that? Like it's written?
To a certain degree, in fate. I've only recently.
Right, and like we through our experiences.
Also, to a certain degree, I think you ultimately do have free will, right? But it's important for you to really search, all right, and see what your purpose is in life.
Then that comes a sense of providence. Some people don't have a sense of providence. Some people do have a sense of providence. The word itself, providence, means that a divine power taking care of you. The universe is taking care of you. Exactly what you said. I had to go through that job for me to get to this level, right? And you had the similar experiences. I had to do this to get to that level. I had the same experiences, right? That's called like an external power that is bigger than us, taking care of us, right? And the reason why I'm talking about this is because I want to really get this message across. Is in life we stress a lot. That problem, this problem, that problem.
It's a normal part of life.
A lot of people, they can't have the fine line between their life and their professional life, right? And they stress a lot and all that kind of stuff. Where I'm going from this is if you truly believe in providence and you believe that whatever's happening for a particular reason, then why are we stressing?
Because we're human beings,
right?
And you know what? It's just part of being a human. It's just human nature.
Exactly, right? But we can mitigate that through thinking like a certain way, through adding perspective into our life. That you know what?
I think the biggest thing is to look in hindsight and say, okay, so I can see that, say, my family's gone through this, friends and other people have gone through that particular thing, and they've told me how, look, it's all worked out, right? If you believe in divine providence, okay, then turn back to your divine providence, right? So your scripture, right? Look, if you don't believe, okay, then look at other ways, right? Look at ultimately what you feel your purpose is in life. Okay. Now, if you've got you believe in divine providence, you go back and you say, okay, well, the divine provider really knows what my purpose is. So I've got to be in touch with my divine provider. All right.
And that's how you get that sense of providence.
Correct. But ultimately, I do believe it's about just looking at yourself, looking at your experiences, and trying to understand how it all fits in, and ask why. Ask, what am I on this earth for? What am I looking to achieve? How will that impact people around me?
Yeah,
that type of
that
approach.
podcast got really deep, man.
Yeah, there's some profound words from Mina. I think is that the end of our podcast today?
I don't know, bro. I want to talk more to Mina.
Yeah, we can keep going, bro.
Mina,
maybe another session soon. Then.
Maybe another session.
Is that still recording, bro?
Yeah, it's still recording.
That one as well?
Yeah, that one's still recording. All right, Mina, just before we go, just a quick one. One book recommendation for our viewers.
One book recommendation. Okay, all right. I would say I've got a lot of books. I love a lot of books.
Me too.
Man. You're making it really hard on me. Thank you. I would say look at Good to Great.
Good to Great.
Yep. It's a book about, again, organizations and how to turn companies from what they are into something that's even better. And it's really team based and leadership based.
Cool.
I think without leadership, we can't go as far as we can go.
Good to Great. All right. Well, we'll certainly add it to the Better Person reading list.
The Good to Great, yeah?
Yeah, Good to Great.
Have you read it?
I have not.
Okay.
So I'm really keen.
Let's get it.
Keen to
There you go.
give it a go.
Do you have a book recommendation just for me personally?
Oh,
Because I always like to receive
yeah,
other
yeah.
people's feedback.
Well,
so their
actually,
thoughts and-
we recently we were talking about extreme ownership, which we
that's
love.
nice.
Oh yeah.
You know, the
I
power
was
of
listening
now.
to the audio book and I loved it. Yeah.
It's great.
What do you love about it?
What do I love about it?
Yes.
Just the way that so I come from a military family. Both my parents are in the military, have been for a long time.
Wow,
Right.
okay.
So a lot of those conversations I could relate to because
That's intense.
I've heard it.
Yeah.
You know, and so and I've lived in the business world. So the way that Jocko and what's the other guy's name?
Jocko Willink and Leif.
Yeah, Leif Babin.
Babin.
Yeah. So the way that they take that experience, then apply it to the business world, because
Yes.
that's something that I'm really au fait with,
Yes.
was really, really valuable for
Yeah.
me. Was
And it's interesting how those skills are transferable, isn't it?
very
It is.
Because they
interesting.
weren't
It
dealing with
is,
numbers,
it
they weren't dealing
is.
with figures, but leadership, the principles are pretty much the same wherever you go. So they were able to take that from a military perspective, background, into real life. And
Yeah.
let's be honest, there's nothing that's more intense than the military.
No.
Right? It's life or death.
Like the shit that they were talking about in that book, I'm like, yo, this is crazy.
It's
Like,
mad. It's a good book for
you know, like,
leadership. Yeah.
dude's like leg got blown off and all this like crazy shit. I was like, no.
Because in military, right, and the reason being is because you can apply it to a business side is because in military there's a big sense of brotherhood,
Yes.
right? I
yeah.
know every single thing about you.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we're in the military, we're living together 24 hours and whatnot, right?
Mhm.
And if we can,
And I think that's something that's missing largely from the corporate
that's
world.
what that's exactly
absolutely.
what I was going to, right? That's exactly what
Absolutely.
I'm getting to. If we can incorporate the same principles that we learn in the military from
Yeah.
the brotherhood, leadership, you know, if I'm taking you with me, I'll take you with me.
Yeah,
'Cause we've
yeah.
got a bigger picture, bigger macro
Yeah.
thing that we're fighting with,
Yeah.
same purpose, right? If we can incorporate that values into our companies in a starting basis, we've got a company like, you know,
Yeah,
proper-
yeah,
there's
100%.
not going to be politics
Yeah.
because we're all fighting for the same cause.
Yep. Company, organization, whether it's a not-for-profit, ultimately it's about that team.
Yeah.
Exactly, right? That one team has that one purpose and they're just all into that purpose.
Yeah.
That one batch in military has that one purpose, that one mission, and they're all into that, right? So
Perfect.
that's awesome, guys. Thank you so much for
Oh,
coming
absolute
over.
pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Really appreciate it, Mina.
What
been
did you
great.
what did you learn from this podcast, man? Just quickly.
Oh, from this podcast, I actually didn't know that tax advisors went into management consultancy. That's one thing that I actually learned. It wasn't that profound thing, but it was really interesting to me because in that world, I've lived in that world for a long time, and I never even thought to think that.
Yeah.
You know, so it was
That's
really
awesome.
interesting.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much, brother.
Absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much, guys. If you guys made it this far in the podcast, we appreciate you. Just quickly, as we said last time, liking, subscribing, sharing helps us out, keeps motivating us to motivate you guys, giving you guys content. Thank you, Chrissy, for coming. He's an audio engineer, so every time he comes, he sets out everything out.
Love your work, Chris.
Thank you, Mina.
I love you, Chris.
I love you too, bro.
Thanks, bro. I love you, Mina.
Thanks, brother. I love you too.
All right, boys. Let's make it
let's
an
go,
end.
let's go.
Thanks so much for watching, and let's clap at the end.
Yeah,
Thank
all
you.
right, peace. Alrighty, let's do it. All right, man.